My wife found her own signature in our son's new house 6 years after she retired. It was printed at the bottom of a nursing report for a woman Miriam had never met. The report claimed my wife had examined the woman at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, evaluated a wound, changed a treatment plan, and approved another week of home visits. At 9 o'clock that Tuesday, Miriam had been sitting beside me in a cardiologist's waiting room 40 miles away. But I did not know any of that when she first came down the curved staircase at Andrew's housewarming party. All I knew was that her face had lost its color. The party was being held in a glass and stone house on the edge of Columbus, Ohio. It stood on 2 wooded acres behind a gate, with a camera hidden in a brick pillar. There were 6 bedrooms, a heated pool, a kitchen with 2 islands, and a wine room larger than the first apartment Miriam and I had rented after our wedding. My son had paid $1,400,000 for it. At least, that was what he had told me. More than 80 people moved through the rooms carrying champagne and small plates. Some were employees from Andrew's company, Havenbridge Senior Services. Others were bankers, county officials, hospital administrators, and people whose shoes cost more than my first truck. A jazz trio played beside the fireplace. Photographs of Andrew and his wife, Camille, had already been arranged on shelves as if the house had belonged to them for generations. I was standing near the back terrace while Andrew explained his outdoor kitchen to a county commissioner. My son was 44 years old, broad-shouldered, silver beginning at his temples, and very good at making people feel that whatever he said next had been prepared especially for them. He had built Havenbridge around a simple promise: helping older people remain safely in their own homes. It was a promise Miriam and I had believed in enough to give him $85,000 when he started the company. Miriam touched my elbow. "Harold," she said. Her voice was quiet, but after 48 years of marriage, I knew every kind of quiet she had. There was the quiet she used in church, the quiet she used when one of our children was sleeping, the quiet she used as a nurse when a frightened family needed to believe the room was under control. This was none of those. "We have to go," she whispered. I turned toward her. "Are you sick?" "No." "What happened?" Her fingers tightened around my sleeve. "Smile first." That frightened me more than if she had screamed, so I smiled. Across the room, Camille was watching us. She wore a cream-colored dress and the diamond earrings Andrew had given her on their 10th anniversary. She raised her glass. I raised mine in return. "Now walk with me," Miriam said. "Not toward the front door. Go through the kitchen." We moved past the islands, thanked a waiter, and stepped into a mudroom filled with coats. Miriam opened the door to the garage. 3 vehicles waited beneath bright white lights: Andrew's black SUV, Camille's sports car, and a vintage convertible that had once belonged to her father. Our 14-year-old Ford pickup was parked at the bottom of the circular drive. The September air felt cool after the crowded house. We walked without hurrying. Halfway down the drive, Andrew called behind us. "Dad?" I turned. He stood beneath the portico with one hand in his pocket. "Where are you going?" Miriam answered before I could. "My stomach is unsettled." Andrew took one step forward. "We have rooms upstairs. You can lie down." "Home is better," she said. His eyes moved from her to me. It was a quick movement, but I saw calculation in it. "You didn't get to see the lower level," he said. "We finished a guest suite you two would love." "Next time," I replied. Camille appeared behind him. "At least let Daniel drive you. You've both had champagne." Neither of us had finished half a glass. "I'm fine," I said. For a second, no one spoke. Then Andrew put on the warm expression he used in photographs. "Call when you get home." I opened the passenger door for Miriam and walked around the truck. We did not speak until the gate closed behind us. "Pull over," she said. There was a small Methodist church a mile down the road. I turned into its empty parking lot and stopped beneath an oak tree. Miriam sat with both hands in her lap, looking through the windshield. "Upstairs, I asked one of the caterers where the restroom was," she began. She pointed me toward the east hall. I opened the wrong door. What was inside? An office. Not Andrew's regular office. There were metal cabinets, a document scanner, medication labels, and patient schedules. I waited. "One cabinet was open," she said. I saw a familiar name on a folder. Mrs. Ida Bell. I cared for her after her hip surgery 8 years ago. She died last winter. Maybe Havenbridge treated her later. They billed a supervisory visit to her 3 weeks ago. The church parking lot seemed suddenly too still. Miriam reached into her purse and removed her phone. She opened a photograph. It showed a white page on a dark desk. At the top were the words, Clinical Supervisory Review. At the bottom, above a typed license number, was my wife's name, Miriam Bennett, RN. The signature was hers, not similar to hers. Hers. My license is still active because of the free clinic, she said. That report says I examined a patient last month. Here is another from June. And another from April. She moved through the photographs. Different names, different addresses, the same signature. How many did you see? Enough. I felt the old instinct to protect my family rise inside me. It had protected Andrew when he broke a neighbor's window at 11. It had helped him through a failed first business, a divorce, and a season when he could not pay his taxes. That instinct immediately began offering explanations. A clerical error, an old template, a confused employee. Then Miriam showed me the last photograph. It was not a nursing report. It was an invoice for a wheelchair ramp and bathroom conversion at an address on Willow Lane. The invoice stated that the work had been inspected and certified by Bennett Residential Improvements. That had been my company. I had closed it 9 years earlier. My old state registration number appeared beneath a digital copy of my seal. That ramp cost $19,000, Miriam said. Did you build it? No. Did you inspect it? No. She looked at me then. Her eyes were wet, but her voice remained steady. Harold, according to those records, I have been treating people for 2 years, and according to the invoices, you have been building their houses. I looked back toward the road leading to our son's mansion. For years, Andrew had told us Havenbridge was growing faster than anyone expected. He said hospitals trusted him. He said county programs loved him. He said his success proved that a business could do good and still do well. The house behind that gate had been built as evidence of the dream. Now I wondered whose names were hidden inside its walls. We need to ask him, I said. Miriam shook her head. Not yet. He is our son. That is why not yet. She took my hand. If this is innocent, waiting one day will not hurt him. If it is not innocent, warning him could hurt every patient whose file is in that room. I had spent most of my life measuring twice before I cut once. It was a rule I had taught hundreds of apprentices and ignored whenever my own child was involved. That night, for the first time, I decided to measure my son by what he had done instead of what I hoped he meant. Andrew had not grown up planning to work with older people. As a boy, he wanted to design airplanes. In high school, he wanted to become a sports agent. During college, he changed majors 3 times and graduated with a degree in business communications that Miriam described as expensive proof he could talk. He could talk. Even at 22, Andrew could enter a room filled with strangers and leave knowing everyone's name. People mistook that ease for shallowness, but when he was young, there was kindness beneath it. He carried groceries for our elderly neighbor without being asked. He spent one winter shoveling the walk of a teacher who had lost her husband. When Miriam's mother developed Parkinson's disease, Andrew drove her to appointments and never complained about the time. The idea for Havenbridge came after my sister, Ruth Ann, fell in her bathroom. She was 79 and lived alone in a small ranch house outside Newark. The hospital wanted to discharge her, but the bathroom doorway was too narrow for a walker, the front steps had no rail, and no home care agency could send a nurse for 6 days. Andrew was sitting with us in the hospital cafeteria when he said the system made no sense. The nurse doesn't talk to the contractor, he said. The contractor doesn't talk to the family. The family calls 10 numbers and gets 10 excuses. Why isn't there one company that handles all of it? Miriam looked at him with interest. Clinical care and home modifications under one plan? And transportation. Meals, equipment, whatever keeps someone from being forced into a facility because one doorway is too small. For 6 months, he researched licenses, billing systems, vendors, and insurance. He asked smart questions. He listened to Miriam explain care plans and staffing ratios. He followed me through old jobs while I explained grab bar placement, ramp slope, non-slip flooring, and the difference between making a house accessible and making it look institutional. When the bank declined his first loan, he came to our kitchen with a 27-page business plan. I am not asking for a gift, he said. I am asking you to invest in something you already believe in. The $85,000 came from savings I had built by repairing kitchens on weekends and teaching carpentry during the week. It was not our retirement fund, but it was not loose change either. Miriam and I discussed it for 3 nights. He has found work that matters, she said. I agreed. We wrote a proper loan agreement. Andrew insisted. 5% interest. Payments beginning after 18 months. No ownership for us and no right to interfere in daily operations. He wanted to prove he was building his own company. The first 2 years were difficult. Havenbridge operated from 3 rooms above a pharmacy. Andrew drove patients himself when the transportation coordinator quit. Camille handled billing at the kitchen table after putting their daughter, Sophie, to bed. Miriam volunteered 10 hours a week during the company's first 3 months, helping create nursing policies and interview its first clinical supervisor. I loaned tools and taught 2 young workers how to install rails without splitting old plaster. Then Miriam stepped away. At the time, she told me the company had hired qualified staff and no longer needed free help. I believed her. Years later, I would learn that was only half the reason. Havenbridge began winning contracts. A regional hospital hired it to reduce readmissions. 2 insurance plans added it to their networks. County agencies referred older residents who qualified for home modification grants. Andrew paid our loan on schedule and returned every tool with new blades. His success felt earned. At Sunday dinners, he talked about clients who could bathe safely, veterans who returned home from rehabilitation, and widows who no longer had to choose between food and transportation. Miriam always asked detailed questions. How many registered nurses supervised the aides? Who verified visits? What happened when a patient declined care? Andrew answered at first. Later, Camille began answering for him. She had studied finance and spent 10 years in hospital administration. She was intelligent, composed, and impatient with questions she considered emotional. If Miriam asked about staffing, Camille displayed retention percentages. If I asked about a construction invoice, she explained vendor utilization. She could make a concern sound outdated by attaching it to a chart. You 2 built small businesses, she told us once. Healthcare at scale is different. I remember feeling insulted, then embarrassed for feeling insulted. Andrew changed in smaller ways. He stopped saying patients and began saying covered lives. He stopped visiting the office above the pharmacy and moved Havenbridge into a mirrored building beside the interstate. He hired a communications director. His Christmas cards began listing corporate awards beneath the family photograph. None of that proved dishonesty. A successful company does not have to remain poor to remain good. I reminded myself of that whenever Andrew arrived in a new car or canceled dinner for a conference. The house was different. He had invited us to see the land before construction began. Standing among the trees, he described a home where the entire family could gather. He pointed to a lower terrace. There will be a full suite down there, he said. No steps, wide doors, private entrance. If you and Mom ever need us, you will never have to go anywhere else. Miriam smiled politely. On the drive home, she said, he designed our old age without asking where we want to spend it. It was meant kindly. Perhaps. Andrew never asked us for money for the house. That had reassured me. He said Havenbridge had distributed profits after an exceptional year, and the bank considered the business strong enough to support the mortgage. At the housewarming, he gave a speech beside the fireplace. He thanked Camille for believing in him, Sophie for sharing her father with a demanding mission, and his employees for changing the way America ages. Then he thanked us. My parents taught me that dignity is not a luxury, he said. Everything Havenbridge has become started at their kitchen table. The guests applauded. Miriam squeezed my hand. I thought she was moved. Later, she told me she had felt trapped. If she challenged him after that speech, she would look like an ungrateful mother attacking the son who honored her. If she stayed silent, her name would continue giving credibility to a company she no longer understood. That was before she opened the wrong door. At home, after the party, we placed her photographs on our kitchen table and opened the old Havenbridge files we had kept. The first clinical policies carried Miriam's name as a temporary advisor. The authorization was limited to 90 days and had expired more than 8 years earlier. My construction registration had been used only for 3 original demonstration projects. Each form stated that no future use was permitted without written approval. Miriam read the pages twice. "When I stopped volunteering," she said, "it was because Camille asked me to approve a patient visit I had not supervised." I stared at her. "You never told me that." "I made them remove it." Andrew apologized. He said a new employee had copied the wrong signature block. "And you believed him?" "I wanted to." The words were not an accusation. They were a confession we shared. I sat across from her, surrounded by proof that our names had entered our son's company through a door we had opened ourselves. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you had just had the procedure on your heart. Because you were proud of him. Because he fixed it when I demanded it." She looked down. "And because I did not want one bad form to become the reason you lost your son." Outside, wind moved through the maple tree beside our porch. The branches rubbed softly against the roof. "What do we do now?" I asked. Miriam closed the file. "We find out whether it was one bad form." The address on the ramp invoice belonged to a woman named Elsie Monroe. I recognized the street before I recognized her name. Willow Lane was a row of modest houses built after the Korean War, all shallow roofs, small porches, and maple trees that had grown large enough to lift sections of sidewalk. I had installed rails in 2 of those houses through a church volunteer program. Miriam and I did not drive there immediately. We spent Sunday morning deciding what we could learn without frightening a patient or contaminating evidence. Neither of us was a lawyer. Neither of us wanted to turn suspicion into accusation simply because our names appeared where they did not belong. At noon, I called Denise Park. Denise had been our attorney for 23 years. She had handled the sale of my company, drafted our wills, and once stopped a contractor from placing a lien on my widowed sister's house. She was 68, small, direct, and unimpressed by family titles when documents said something else. She listened without interrupting. "Do not call Andrew," she said when I finished. That was Miriam's advice. Miriam is right. My wife lifted an eyebrow as if this outcome had never been in doubt. Denise asked us to send copies of our original agreements, not the photographs from the patient files. Those, she said, might contain protected medical information. Miriam should keep the images secure, show them only to counsel or investigators, and not forward them through ordinary email. "Can we contact the woman on Willow Lane?" I asked. "Only if you know her independently. Do not pretend to be investigating. If she chooses to show you her own bills or records, that is different." I did know Elsie, though not well. 5 years earlier, our church had received a request to repair her porch rail after she broke a wrist. I had led the work crew. She made us lemonade and corrected my grammar while we measured posts. A retired school librarian, she believed precision was a form of respect. When I telephoned, she remembered me. "Mr. Bennett," she said, "the man who thinks a semicolon is decorative. I have improved. At your age, improvement is a lovely rumor." Her humor eased something in me. I told her I was reviewing old volunteer projects and asked whether the porch rail remained secure. That was true, though incomplete. She invited us for coffee the next afternoon. Elsie was 84. She answered the door using a walker and wore a purple sweater despite the warm day. The original rail I had installed was solid. A short wooden ramp extended from the porch to the driveway. It was newer than the rail, but simple. Treated lumber, basic handrails, no concrete foundation. "Havenbridge built that?" I asked. "Their subcontractor did." 3 boys who spent most of the morning arguing about a level. Inside, Miriam admired the shelves covering Elsie's living room. We talked about books, church, and the changes on Willow Lane. I did not mention the invoice until Elsie complained that an insurance company kept sending statements for services she did not understand. "Would you like Miriam to look at them?" I asked. She used to supervise home care. Elsie disappeared into the bedroom and returned with a grocery bag filled with envelopes. The explanation of benefits forms showed Havenbridge billing for nursing visits, personal care assistance, transportation, and a major accessibility modification package. Elsie had received some services. An aide came 3 mornings a week. A driver took her to physical therapy. Someone had installed the ramp. But the dates and amounts did not match her memory. "This says a nurse saw you on August 14th, Miriam said. "I was in Michigan with my niece that week." "August 18th? Still in Michigan. September 2nd? Elsie looked toward the calendar beside her telephone. That was Labor Day. No one came. I found the construction line. The program had been billed $18,900 for a modular aluminum ramp, reinforced landing, widened exterior door, bathroom grab bar system, and electrical safety upgrade. The wooden ramp outside could not have cost more than $2,000, even with labor. Her door had not been widened. The bathroom had one grab bar, a retail model fixed into drywall with anchors I would never have approved. At the bottom of the itemized statement appeared my old registration number. "Did I inspect this work?" I asked. Elsie laughed. "You are here now. Before today." Her smile faded. "No." Miriam asked whether Elsie had signed completion forms. She remembered a tablet. A young man from Havenbridge told her the signature confirmed the ramp had arrived. She could not read the full document because the screen kept moving. "Am I in trouble?" she asked. That question changed the room. An 84-year-old woman had been overbilled, poorly served, and left with a dangerous grab bar. Yet her first fear was that someone would punish her. "No," Miriam said. She moved beside Elsie and placed a hand over hers. "You are not in trouble." I went to the bathroom and tested the bar. It shifted under half my weight. "Do not use this," I called. Elsie appeared in the doorway. "It is the only thing I have to hold when I step into the tub." I removed my belt, wrapped it through the bar, and pulled. One anchor tore out of the wall. Miriam inhaled sharply. I thought of Havenbridge's advertisements. Safe